Manson, after one of the parole hearings, said he was going to have me murdered out in the parking lot, and he threatened to kill me 3 times.
More than 50 years later, retired prosecutor Stephen Kay still watches his back. Kay helped put Charles Manson and some of his followers behind bars and attended 60 parole hearings related to the cases. Kay is the reason why prosecutors in California started attending parole hearings to point out inconsistencies in crimes and to support victims' families. But for the first time in LA County history, there was no prosecutor present at recent hearings to argue against the release of Manson followers Bruce Davis and Leslie Van Houten.
We're not here talking about rehabilitation from a burglary case or a car theft or a robbery. We're talking about killer. Leslie Van Houten, you know, she's doing a great job in prison, and I commend her for that. But for what they did, they don't deserve to be paroled.
LA County DA George Gascón says prosecutors are not experts on rehabilitation and that their role ends at sentencing. Gascón believes it is possible to have a balance between public safety and equity. Right now, LA is the only county in the state to bar prosecutors from life sentence hearings. About 200 are held a month for LA County, and many victims' families say they feel abandoned by the DA's office.
It was a murder. It's as if he pulled a gun out of his belt and shot her.
Except the weapon was the car.
In several corners of Malibu, there are reminders of Michelle and Ellen Shane's daughters.
Emily was a free spirit. She was creative, she was an artist, she loved to dance.
In April of 2010, Michelle was on his way to pick up his 13-year-old when he noticed an erratic driver.
He was going super fast.
On PCH.
Oh my God, this guy is crazy. Look at how he's driving. He made a screech that caused her to turn and get hit head on.
Emily died in an ambulance.
That was the last day of that life.
A deputy on scene testified he heard the driver, Sina Konkanian, say, "I did it on purpose. She deserved it." And this recorded on a deputy's body cam.
Just because one person died, who gives a about that?
Konkanian was reportedly suicidal over losing his job.
He didn't care who he hurt, how he hurt them, or what happened.
He was convicted of second-degree murder, given a sentence of 15 years to life. After serving 11, he came up for parole.
He's suddenly going to be this kind, generous, understanding person who would never react in a rage again.
If he did change, the Shanes would know nothing about it before attending the hearing alone.
We're going in blind.
It was routine for prosecutors to attend parole hearings, but LA County DA George Gascón says for too long, deputy DAs have argued to keep people in prison. Gascón tells his prosecutors to support parole for those who have served their mandatory minimum sentence and in writing. If the person is still a high risk, prosecutors can take a neutral stance.
When the prosecutor goes into a parole hearing, they're trying to go back and relitigate whatever happened years ago. And the people that really know whether someone is dangerous or not, based on the last 10, 15, 30 years, are the people on parole board.
The CDCR keeps custody reports detailing an inmate's behavior in prison. Prosecutors use them to prepare families for hearings. Gascon's policy prohibits his deputy DAs access to that info.
A privacy to how they behaved in prison.
The family doesn't need to know about the rehabilitation process. Their role there is to express their pain. Sometimes we've had cases where people are fearful, and we actually provided a letter to the parole board recently saying the family continues to be fearful and you should consider this in the release.
The latest CDCR report shows of those granted parole in 2014 to 2015, 2% re-offended.
You would think that having prosecutors at a parole hearing actually increases the likelihood that people are going to be held back. But actually, data from the California Corrections Department actually shows the contrary, that when there is no prosecutor in the hearing, actually your likelihood of not being released increases.
Gascón offers victim advocates to attend hearings with families.
They're there to explain the process, to provide trauma-informed care.
The Shanes say they were never given that option, so they enlisted the help of a former prosecutor under Marcy's law. Dozens of retired prosecutors have stepped up to do the same, pro bono. Sheriff Alex Villanueva sends members of his department. In 1994,
I was 18 years old. I was angry.
Alan Burnett went to prison.
I was involved in a kidnap, robbery, and a murder.
A sentence of life without parole.
I didn't care about myself, and I didn't care about anybody else.
Years into his sentence, Burnett unpacked childhood traumas.
My father died from a drug overdose. I found my father dead. Verbally abused, physically abused.
And finally admitted to the crime to himself.
And regardless of I didn't pull the trigger, I don't. But at the end of the day, I'm responsible.
Burnett enrolled in self-help programs and got his college degree in prison. In 2020, he went before the parole board for a commutation hearing.
It wasn't an excuse or a free pass or we'll forgive you. Having my sentence commuted was an opportunity for me to go in front of the parole board and see if I was redeemable, if I was suitable, if I was still a threat to society.
By law, Burnett couldn't look at the victim's family, but he could see the pain he was still causing.
Me being there, me breathing, me talking about my crime.
Almost 30 years later.
I was re-traumatizing them. I just felt so guilty, so ashamed, I felt so undeserving.
Burnett believes victims' families should be given a choice of having prosecutors at hearings.
They should have an opportunity to be able to check and see what this individual has done, if they changed or not.
He also believes families should have contact with inmates if they desire.
One of the family members said, if you're so sorry, why didn't you write to the family? I had wrote extensively letters of regret, remorse, responsibility to the family.
Today, Burnett is working on his master's. He collaborates with various criminal justice reform groups, including Parole Justice Works, hoping to change lives and the narrative.
The narrative that I had received was I was worthless, I didn't have any value. But you need to rehabilitate. You need to change the way you think, change the way you treat people.
Konkanian was denied release, but the Shanes are already anxious about the next time they and other families may feel like they're fending for themselves.
Who's the prisoner?
Who committed the infraction? Who killed somebody?
I don't know if a sentence needs to be in perpetuity.
I'm all for giving them another chance. I'm not vengeful, but I think in this case, that's not the case.
I think it's important that we address crime, that we're effective in creating safety for our community, that we hold people accountable, but I think it's also important that we do not make the mistakes of the past.
We obtained recent emails from the DA's office asking prosecutors to no longer inform victims and families about that retired group of prosecutors helping at parole hearings. Assembly Bills 1846 and 47 aimed at protecting crime victims were passed last week, and they include reimbursement for crime victims to hire private attorneys for parole hearings. Also this week, Gascón announced an expansion of the Bureau of Victim Services. Now, the family you just met in our story, the Shanes, partnered with a teacher and started the Emily Shane Foundation. Emily always went out of her way to help people and to make people feel included. The C program provides tutoring and mentoring services to local students who are struggling in school and come from low-income households. 13 sites have been opened up over the past decade, and over 1,000 children have been helped. It is a free service, but students who participate are encouraged to do a good deed or an act of kindness to pay it forward. The Emily Shane Foundation is holding a fundraiser next month. Just go to our website, kcal9.com or cbsla.com, and click Seen on TV for more information.